Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm going to continue my John Brunner series in this video with his 10th published story titled No Future in It. This was published in the September 1955 issue of Science Fantasy magazine, which I read this story in the PDF that I found of that issue. I do have that issue in the mail on its way to me as I shoot this. And the reason I wanted to just not wait and go ahead with this story is because that issue of Science Fantasy actually has 2 John Brunner stories. So I can hold it up for the second story. So I don't have a physical magazine to show you. No Future in It was just a short story. And he published it because of the deal with magazines back then is a single author could not have more than one story in one issue under his own name. They could sell more stories and get them published together in one issue of a magazine, but they had to come up with pseudonyms for the other stories. Only one of them could be published under his rightful name. So Brunner published No Future in It under the name of Keith Woodcott. Typically, the more major story, longer length, or just overall better story would get the author's real name or real writing name. And the lesser of the stories would get the pseudonym. And that's the case here, I think. I haven't read the other story yet. I don't even remember what it's titled. The other story is titled The Talisman. And you could flip a coin as to which one is number 10 and which one's number 11. I put them in with No Future in It as number 10 in my bibliography. But you could flip-flop that and it wouldn't matter because it's the same issue of the same magazine hit the newsstands on the same day. Anyway, No Future in It is science fiction fantasy, and it's a comedy. Okay? Basic synopsis is you have this wizard back in sometime in medieval England, I assume, and he's trying to conjure a demon into a pentagram. So he has a pentagram on the floor, and he lit the right candles and boiled the right chemicals and said the right phrases, and a demon was supposed to appear. Well, no demon appeared, so he sent his apprentice back to the shop where he bought all the supplies to try and get his money back because they're not working. In reality, he's just not a magician. He doesn't have any real magic and doesn't really know what he's doing, but he doesn't want anybody to catch on to that because he's making money off this stuff. So after his apprentice leaves, he tries it again, and he's only just started the incantation, and all of a sudden a demon appears, and the demon lights up a cigarette and talks with a Brooklyn accent. He didn't actually make a demon appear. What actually happened is a time traveler just happens to have appeared in his pentagram at that moment. And that's where the science fiction comes in. It's a well done story. It's enjoyable. It's funny. It's nothing great. It's short. It's a nice 15-20 minute read. And I can't really say much more than that. It's nothing spectacular. It's nothing great. It's not going to blow your mind in any way. It's not any kind of great literature. It's just a fun little story. But it is a fun little story. It really is enjoyable. So I think you should look it up. It is collected in other books. You don't have to get the issue of science fantasy. The first collection it appeared in actually was the whole collection was given the title of this story, No Future in It. And I believe it's also in the Best of John Brunner, and which is a paperback that was published in the 80s, and a couple other of Brunner's collections, all of which are out of print, unfortunately. But hit your used bookstores, you can probably find one of them. So it's worth looking up and reading it, because it is a fun little story. And there's a whole other John Brunner story in that issue of Science Fantasy, if you can get a hold of that. So have you read No Future in It? If you have, leave your comments in the comments section. I'd really like to hear what you thought of the story. And otherwise, come on back. My next John Brunner, which, as I've said, I'm slowing down the author deep dives a bit this year. But the next one is that same issue of Science Fantasy, The Talisman. And when I shoot that, I will have the magazine to show you. It's got kind of a neat cover, and it, judging from the artwork, the illustrations for The Talisman is the cover story for this issue of Science Fantasy, and judging by the illustrations, the story is about an artist, which instantly makes it interesting to me. So I want to read. I'm looking forward to reading it and looking forward to talking to you about that. I hope you'll come back for that and all the other John Brunner and other literature content we do on Telltale